Hey everybody, taking a little video here showing the main wiring harness for a 2009 Duramax LMM engine. Removed from the truck, it is being prepared for use as a standalone harness on an engine swap. So just going to walk through the connectors and some of their functions and what you can and can't take out. Starting with the Ecm connections, we have the two large Ecm connections that go onto the Bosch ECU. Those you're going to leave untouched. This is the TCM transmission controller. Those are both in the engine bay. They come together, and these are the two main plugs that attach on the top of the Duramax engine. This is X107 and X108. And then continuing across the top of the engine, turn around here. Continuing across the top of the engine, you come across the plug for the AC compressor. That activates the coil on the compressor. Then there's a 3-pin that is an AC pressure switch. I don't think it's really a trinary switch. It's actually a digital switch, so it's got a 0 volt, a 5 volt, and then a sensor out. That's probably the main AC pressure switch. Then we have a little jumper harness here, but this is the plug that goes to the alternator. This truck has a single alternator. Then there's the main power wire for the alternator off the stud. Next to that, the next thing is the MAF sensor. It's a 5-wire for the Hitachi blade style MAF that's in the air cleaner. Then next is the intake air grid heater that's inside the next to the throttle body plate. I will be removing this since I'm doing a complete EGR delete and deleting the DPF. Next on the harness is kind of a long wire. It goes back to a 2-conductor thing. This is EGT sensor number 1. There you can see I've also written the circuit number on it directly from GM's literature. Since I'm removing the DPF system, I will be taking that off. Next in line is the low coolant switch. Once again, a circuit number. This is just a little Metra pack. Confusing because it will interchange with this one, I believe, which is the AC pressure sensor that's right on or near the filter dryer. Right now we're getting into a section that's back on the back passenger side firewall. Directly above the battery is where I believe this is mounted. A couple of the wires are missing. Off the battery on the passenger side of the truck, there's a short, maybe 12-inch long wire that goes into the input of this bus bar here. That's the input into this set of maxi fuses. There's a 175, a 125, and a 175. The 175 goes directly to that intake heater grid. I will be removing this. The second one goes to the glow plug relay. There's another maybe 8-gauge wire that comes out of this that goes into the glow plug. I don't have that in here presently, but that 125 serves only that glow plug relay, and I believe the intake heater 175 serves only the intake heater. Then this fuse, which is a 175, I believe, powers the wire to the alternator, and then this harness is the one that clicks in into the main, I believe they call the UBEC, the main engine fuse block. Going back over here, back to our main connectors on top of the engine, the TCM, the X1 and X2 from the ECM. This leg comes down the side of the engine and gets on the side of the block. I believe this is called ground 106. This goes under a big bolt with another wire. That is the ground on the lower front driver's side of the engine. This then goes underneath the flywheel in the plastic holder. And then on the passenger front side of the engine, G105, there's another ground wire that goes under that. Also, one of the main engine battery connections is very close to this, if not under that same terminal. And then this is the starter solenoid control. So this wire is what activates the solenoid. Then this last leg is what goes down the driver's side of the engine to the transmission area. This has the Allison 6-speed. So this first connector here is on the Allison. I believe this is what you'd call the turbine speed sensor. It's one of the only sensors on the Allison. The next is this X300 connector, which we'll get to in a minute. But continuing down the transmission, this one will tuck underneath the tail shaft of the transmission if it's not four-wheel drive. If it is four-wheel drive, it'll tuck underneath the transfer case adapter. And this round plug is what plugs into the Allison and controls all the solenoids. These two are then transfer case. This is, I believe, gear position indication for the transfer case to let the engine know that the engine computer know what gear it's in, modifies shift patterns, etc. And then I believe this is then the VSS, the very last thing on the tail shaft of the transfer case. If it's two-wheel drive, this may be on the transmission. Back to this X300 connector. This joins the PCM harness, the main engine harness, with some of the functions that are further down on the rail. I believe the DPF differential pressure sensor is on there, and as well as maybe the rear EGT sensor for the DPF system. Also your primary and secondary fuel level sensors if you have a second tank. A lot of these functions are just going to be removed when you do a swap type harness. So that leaves the last couple connectors here, which are kind of the big deal as far as labeling and knowing where they go. Oh, forgot one thing. This is a 4-pin Metropack that essentially goes down to the front differential. I believe there's a jumper harness that goes from this to the front differential. This is going to do the front diff in and out control solenoid, and as well as a position indicator. Next video, X109 connector and the X2 connector from the bottom of the UBEC.